Hi everyone, it's Daria. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm here to share with you my completed traveler's notebook for my European trip that I took in September 2022. If you haven't seen how I've prepped this traveler's notebook for my trip before I went, then I will link a video up above at the eye as well as down in the description so that you can see what I did before I even set out traveling and what things I took with me when I went. And it did take me longer than I expected to complete it, but the reason being I came back from my trip at the very end of September, so it was just in time to start my October daily. And then of course things get busy with the holidays, December daily happens, the new year starts, so there were just so many projects that I had to work on this notebook very slowly. But I do want to let you know that I actually did journal on my trip, so it was semi-successful. I would definitely take a traveler's notebook with me again. In case you haven't seen my setup video, I am using an Ali Edwards traveler's notebook from her travel collection from 2021. And a lot of these products that you'll see here actually came from the same collection because they coordinate really well. I'll try to point out some of the products that I used, but if you want to know more, check out my setup video because it goes a little bit more detail about what kind of things like stamps and things like that I'm using here. So I stapled the adventure word, which was from Ali's travel release 2021, and I believe that's the same thing she did in her traveler's notebook when she worked in this one in her travel class. And on the inside I created these vellum pockets by using StazOn ink and just folding the pocket on 3 sides and then cutting out a half circle. And here I just slipped my boarding passes, museum tickets, definitely not all of the ephemera that I brought from this trip. I actually have a whole bag of ephemera, but some of the things that I kind of deemed a little bit more important, such as, you know, like my tickets and like plane tickets and things like that, I wanted to keep that all in this notebook. And I actually might just keep it there forever, so we'll see, because I do plan to do like a 10x8 big album and enlarge a lot of my photos, but I know it will take me a while to get through it, so while my memories were fresh, I really wanted to have a traveler's notebook. So here I just did some stamping with some of my Everyday Explorers and Paper Person stamps. And I have this card with the dates that we went. I had to use a paper clip because it just tends to slip out. The card in the pocket is also from the Ali Edwards Travel Collection 2021. And then for my trip, I basically split it into 3 sections because I went to 3 different countries. So the first one was Poland. And this was not chronological because I actually landed in England first to spend a couple of days there. Then I went to Poland. Then I came back to England. Then I went to France. And then I came back to England for good and spent more than a week there. So it was a little bit of a hectic trip. And because of that, I decided to just not go chronologically, but rather just have different sections. I brought my Polaroid with me and I did use some of the photos here, but I have a lot of Polaroids. I think I went through like 4 or 5 rolls, so I'm definitely going to be putting them in my travel scrapbook later on. I have some of the receipts that I saved. They're in polish, so I thought it would kind of give some you know, different feel to this page. And I'm using some random embellishments. This is from Ali Edwards 2022 travel collection, as well as these stickers. The stamp I used is from Felicity Jane. And Poland was very beautiful. I didn't get to see everything. I actually didn't have a lot of time there, and also I was staying with family and we were seeing friends, so it wasn't like a touristy trip, but we did walk around downtown. It was gorgeous. I took a ton of photos, so that was really awesome. I also got to see some family and friends, like I said, when I was there. I put this here for privacy because I did some journaling with the names and stuff. And I just kind of did a trip highlights section for each country that I went to. And I just did like 1, 2, 3, and I chose 3 things that I liked about each of my trips. So that was a good way to like zero in on what's important, because it seems like there's so many memories that it's just kind of hard to pick which ones to talk about. So I think this was a good way to journal about it. Obviously later on when I make a big album I can add journaling, but this way I at least have some information. Then here's an example of a photo that I took in Warsaw that like I absolutely loved this picture, and I decided to blow it up and make it almost full page. I decided not to do full page photos except one in this album because it makes it very bulky. And actually, I'm very surprised that this traveler's notebook is not as chunky as my notebooks usually are. So I think I did a pretty good job, even though I used like fabric embellishments, I stapled things, I even have some chipboard in here and puffy stickers, and it turned out fine. So here I just have, again, some private journaling, but I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit more about like the emotional side of being there, being with my family and things like that. But I love this picture. I didn't include a lot of the pictures I took in Poland, but again, I will get a chance to print them later on. So pictures are not really the focus of this trip. However, I could not resist blowing up the one photo that I love probably the most of the trip, which is the Eiffel Tower. I saw somebody on Instagram take photos from one of the bridges that go across the river. So usually people take photos from that side of Eiffel Tower. There's a big field and there's like a million people there. Over here, there's a museum and you can go up. And I walked from the other side of the river purposely. And I wanted to take photos from here because there were only like 3 other people on the bridge. There were not a lot of people, and the view was unobstructed. You could see the water. I think this is a great view. So if you are going to France, to Paris, I would recommend doing that because I'm just super happy with all of the pictures that I took from there. I mean, I did walk around later on and I took it from that side, but the field was kind of like, I guess we went after the heat wave in Europe. All the grass was dead. It was mostly dirt and it just like wasn't very pretty, and there's so many people there. So I think it's better to take these photos from afar. You can stand here, have a portrait, you can do like a full-length photo, and you have Eiffel Tower in the background without any people. So I actually am very happy with how this played out. And so that being like probably the most, I don't know, for me it was like the most important photo that I took because I've never been to France before. So I really wanted to commemorate that in my traveler's notebook. And I did get this Studio Calico stamp for Paris, and I wanted to stamp some stuff out, but otherwise I have a similar section here with the Felicity Jane Alpha stamp. I stamped out France and I colored it in. So, you know, I'm just kind of writing like general impressions from my trip. Then I took some photos with my mom in the metro. They had one of those machines where you can take like 4 little pictures, so we did some silly photos. I took one of the maps that I brought with me. This is a map of Paris, and I kind of cut out the part that had like the Eiffel Tower and like some of the recognizable landmarks like Arc de Triomphe and things like that. So it's nothing too crazy, but I think it kind of gives it a little bit more of like, this is a travel journal type of feel, so I really like it. I also really like this quote. So this is obviously pre-printed in my traveler's notebook. So it says, travel isn't always pretty. It isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it hurts. It even breaks your heart. But that's okay. The journey changes you. It could change you. It should change you. It leaves marks on your memory, on your consciousness, on your heart, and on your body. You take something with you. Hopefully you leave something good behind. And it's a quote by Anthony Bourdain. I really like that because a lot of the trip wasn't comfortable. When we were in Paris, we were actually staying in this super tiny apartment that like a friend of a friend was renting, which was awesome because we were only 10 minutes by metro from downtown, so we could actually take the train to Arc de Triomphe and be there in like under 15 minutes, which is amazing. And I think we paid something like 60 euro per night, which is quite cheap if you look at the hotels in France. And you know, we had our own kitchen and things like that, so it was definitely worth it, but it was not the most comfortable experience because our room was so small, but we made it work. So that's kind of what this is referring to for me, so that's what I wanted to remember. Another awesome thing in Paris was that I realized when I got there that we were living on the metro line that went to Euro Disney, or I guess now they call it Disneyland Paris. It's no longer called Euro Disney, but I've never been there. So I just went one day. My mom met up with some friends and I just went by myself to check it out. I had a lot of fun. It was surprisingly hot for like mid-September. I got sunburned. It was like very, very hot. So I did not expect that from France, especially because before that I was in Poland where it was freezing, and I was in England, it was also not warm, but here it was so warm. So that was a good experience. I absolutely love this picture that I took of the castle, and I did some journaling, and I used a stamp from Studio Calico that is a couple of years old. I actually don't really remember what it's called, but anyways, I think you can still find it on their website, and I love how this turned out. Here I'm just journaling about food in France, which I did not enjoy. So I was very disappointed with the lack of like pastry selection. And you know, I didn't go to like any fancy restaurants. I think actually this place is like by far the fanciest we went to, which was not far from Eiffel Tower, and we were just hungry and starving, so we went there. But yeah, they didn't like, they were only selling like butter croissants. So like I like the ones with chocolate and almond and like all the different fillings, but they didn't have that. I did have some like apple pastry that I think was good, but the thing that drove me insane was baguettes. It was only two types of baguettes sold everywhere. One I think was like a ham and cheese one, which I can't have because I'm lactose intolerant. And the other one was like chicken and cucumbers and tomatoes, which like I also try not to eat meat, but I kind of had to because there was just like nothing else for me to eat that didn't contain dairy. And yeah, and it was like the same thing wherever we went. And we weren't even going to like super touristy places, I think, when we were looking for food, but I guess this is just what French people eat. What saved us was that we actually lived one stop away from La Défense, and there's a big mall, and there is a Marks and Spencer there. And Marks and Spencer has a lot of like prepackaged food. It's a British store, but they have it in other countries as well. So we just went there and we bought most of our food there and we ate at home. Thankfully, we had a kitchen, we could heat everything up, so that was fine. But I wasn't too impressed with French food. Yeah, I mean, I think like if you love things like crepes and stuff like that, it could be nice. But for me personally, my dairy allergy just kind of excludes most of the European food, so I had a very hard time. And I had this like, I think it was supposed to be like a vegan poke bowl, but it was completely tasteless. Like I was not impressed, because these kinds of things in Canada are super flavorful and usually have like different sauces, and they just like make them very tasty. But here, like it was just, I felt like I was eating grass. So yeah, I didn't really like it. But I think my mom had some good meals, and she had some fish and other stuff, and she can eat dairy, so she had way of an easier time than me. But you know, if you're vegan or lactose intolerant, I think it will be a little bit harder. I think you have to find vegan restaurants, which I wasn't specifically looking for. So that I wasn't too crazy about, especially like with the thing with baguettes everywhere. I felt like there was nothing else for me to eat. So not a great food experience overall. But I did have some trip highlights, and one of them, of course, was the architecture, which was, I don't know if I even felt like it was very different from like the rest of Europe. I think it reminded me a lot of like Vienna, and I think everything was just gorgeous. It was very ornate. I liked just walking in the center of Paris and just taking photos. It was super fun. I definitely fell in love with Eiffel Tower. There's something magical about her, or about it, I guess. But I think because I've never been to Paris and I've seen it in movies so many times, for me it was a big deal to see it in person. And we did get an unexpected additional day in Paris, because we were supposed to fly back to London by Air France, but they went on strike and our flight got canceled, and I think we would have to rebook like quite a bit later on. So instead we got a ticket to Eurostar, which is a train that goes from center of Paris to center of London, which was super fast, very convenient, and it was a little bit pricier, I think, than if we flew, because we got the ticket like 2 days before we went there. But that's fine. We had a great time. We got home super fast, so I can't complain. We got an extra day in Paris, which is something that I wanted, and my mom wanted it as well, because we kind of felt like we couldn't see everything in the time that we had. So on our last day, we went to Louvre, which we otherwise wouldn't have had time to go. So I'm very happy with how it turned out. And then the second half of my traveler's notebook is all about my time in England. And I've been to England a number of times. I think this is the 6th or 7th time that I was there, but it just doesn't get old. Like every time I have to go see the Big Ben. I love taking photos there. I have obviously a lot of stickers because having been on so many trips, I have a lot of like scrapbooking to do. But I just love England. Honestly, London is my favorite city to travel to. Part of the reason being it's very diverse food-wise. It's very international. And that's something that I don't find in other European cities. It's definitely something that I'm used to living in Vancouver because we have so many immigrants here, and in North America, a lot of big cities just have like very international cuisines. But in Europe, I don't really find it that much, to be honest. And at least like compared to where I live. So London, food-wise, for me, absolutely wins over all of the European cities. And I really like this place called Itsu, and it's kind of like an Asian fusion. They have vegan and I think chicken versions. They have sushi, they have gyoza, they have ramen, they have salads. It's so delicious, and we actually lived right across from it, and I ate there all the time. I also love buying all of the Indian food that's sold kind of pre-made. It's not frozen, so that's one of the things that I find different from where I live. If you want to buy like pre-made meals, they're all frozen and kind of tasteless. In England, they're not. So if you go to Sainsbury's or Waitrose or Marks and Spencer, they're just like pre-packaged, but they're like recently cooked. They're kind of fresh. I super love that. I ate so much Indian food. I like pasta and things like that, but I find like Indian food, they're so flavorful. It's such an easy way to have a hot meal if you have a microwave. So it's absolutely perfect. And I was so happy with food. I really miss it. So I wish we had it in Canada because it's so good. And then I also made a page about London Transit and how much I find it, like, I love taking the bus, but it's just so easy to get around London. My tip, if you go and if you've never been, you don't need to buy the hop on, hop off tour. They're quite expensive. What you can do instead is just take the regular bus. It's much cheaper. You can ride on the second floor, and if you're lucky, you can get the front seat, and you can like see the city that way. It just, plan your route, or make sure you have data so you can connect to Wi-Fi or something like that, and look up the like how to get to places. But otherwise you can get everywhere to most of the tourist landmarks by transit, and you get this amazing view from the top. So even when I'm going somewhere and it's faster to go by subway, I still take, or I guess by tube is how they call it, I still take the bus, because tube, a lot of the time in London, it's like very hot and stuffy. It's old, right? It's a very old city. It has old transit, but the buses are amazing. So I super love taking the bus. Even if I have to sit in traffic on top, I don't mind, because that gives me an opportunity to take a lot of photos, people watch. I love that. My favorite castle in England is Hampton Court. I guess it's technically not a castle, it's a palace. And it was the kind of pleasure palace of Henry VIII, and it's an absolutely amazing place to visit. You can again get there by transit, because there is a train that goes to Hampton Court from one of the tube stations. So you just continue on with your Oyster card, which is the card that you use to tap everywhere. Just make sure you load more money, because I think it's more like, I think it's about £8 or £9 to go one way to Hampton Court. So it's more expensive than regular transit, just because you're going kind of further out of the city, but it's so fast. And this palace is incredible. You can buy a guided tour. I didn't do it this time because I was there 5 years ago, and I kind of already like watched a lot of documentaries about it. I didn't feel the need. But you can ride in a horse-drawn carriage in the gardens. You can just kind of wander around. They have cafes. They also, if you go outside of Hampton Court, you can go to restaurants. There's like stuff around there. People live there. And it's so beautiful. And inside there's these like different halls, and they tell you about the history. There's the main hall is where Henry VIII danced with Anne Boleyn. So I'm a history nerd, and I love the Tudors, that TV show, and to me it's just so magical to be there and kind of see where those people actually lived. And they have a lot of portraits, and they recreated like the crown jewels. So I don't think it's a real thing, because I think one of the kings used to like give his jewels to his mistresses. So anyways, the point is that it's an amazing place to visit. Spend a whole day there, don't plan anything after. That was the mistake I did last time, because I think I had a dinner, and by the time we got here, we only had like maybe 4 hours before we had to head back and go to the dinner in central London, which means we had to cut our time short in Hampton Court. And I was there last time in the spring. This particular wall was covered in like purple blooms, and now it was green, so I took this photo just to compare. But I just, the gardens are so amazing. Quite honestly, I liked it more than Versailles, and I'm just biased because I love England way more than France. But in Versailles, I felt like the gardens were so big. Like, I spent hours walking there, to be honest, and they were very like geometrical. Like, what I like about English gardens is that they're all like natural. Obviously they take care of the plants and they plant everything, but they kind of let them grow in a more like natural way. But in France, everything is like cut to be like in these triangular or round shapes, and it's very different. So I think it's very fun to go to Versailles and then go to Hampton Court and kind of compare the two. So for me, Hampton Court for sure wins, and there's way less tourists, by the way, so that's another plus, even though there were a lot of school groups, which means that there were a lot of little kids running around and yelling, but I don't mind. I think it's great for them to see this. So I highly recommend going to Hampton Court if you're ever in London. And here I'm just kind of talking about not spending as much time as I wanted in London. And at some point we were staying outside of the city with some of our friends, and when we actually got to London, I think we had only 5 full days. I saved the like card holder from the hotel. We always like to stay at Citadines because it has a full kitchen. It's a very comfortable hotel. This is not a photo of the hotel, but I kind of saved the map. The only thing I have to say, I was disappointed with how much the quality of it went down since COVID, which I understand. Like, I have to say, like, I know all those businesses were so hard hit by the lockdowns and travel bans and things like that, but we had 6 suitcases with us because we were bringing some of my mom's stuff from Eastern Europe back to Canada. So we kind of had to bring it from Poland to London and then bring it back to Vancouver. And they were like, well, there's a trolley and go ahead and load it up and like take it to your room. So they didn't even like, I don't mind tipping for that kind of thing, but it was so hard to maneuver all of our luggage because we had so much and we actually needed help. And I can't imagine what it would have been like if I couldn't go. My mom was by herself. So I thought that was a little bit not nice of them. And again, like, I don't mind paying extra for that, but I don't think this is the fault of the staff. I think this is just one of the adjustments that hotels are making, but that was an unpleasant surprise. And also, I found that like the floors in our hotel were not cleaned. There were a lot of dust bunnies and things like that. Usually this hotel has always been very clean, very nice. So I think it's positioned as a 4-star hotel, and I would not give it 4 stars, to be honest. So that's just my little feedback if you are looking for a place to stay in London. So I wanted to kind of document some of the drinks as well as food that I had on the trip, but we didn't go to any pubs or anything like that. We're not huge fans of beer, even though I think I wanted to have a Guinness, but it just didn't work out. I drank a ton of tea, so I put a lot of teacups. And one thing that I was very excited about is I managed to find white Zinfandel wine in one of the local grocery stores that was just across the street from us. This wine is actually produced in California, and we have this brand, different types of wines, Merlot and Cabernet and Moscato. But for some reason, we don't have white Zinfandel, even though we're so close to California. I cannot understand why it's not sold where I live. So we brought 4 bottles with us because Canada allows us 2 bottles per person when coming back to our country. So I think we still have 1 left. We saved it for a special occasion, but that was a little bit sad because like we got to drink it in London, but like we cannot find anywhere at home. And it's actually very, very affordable. So that was a bit of a letdown, but it was exciting to find that in London when we were not looking for it. So that was a nice surprise. While I was in England, I got to visit this little place called St. Albans. It's a very old town and it's so beautiful, like it's magical. I had this like photo of the sunset that we took. This is actually a hill, so standing on the top. But you can see these buildings, they have like very old beams. If you go inside, a lot of them were like sagging and they had to put new columns to support it. It's kind of crazy to watch, but it's just so English and it's so pretty. There's flowers everywhere and you have these like brick buildings in different colors, and I just loved it. It's a touristy place for sure, but just like walking around there was so cool, and I've never even heard of it. Our friend took us, so I was very grateful for that. So kind of did some journaling about the time there. And of course I had to do at least one Harry Potter related activity. So for me, it was when I came back from Paris by train. We got to St. Pancras station, which is right next to King's Cross station. So we went to King's Cross, and inside you can take photos of like platform 9 3/4. It's actually not on the platform, it's just like in this big hall. And there is a lineup, and a professional photographer will take your photo if you like. They even give you like props, so they give you the wand and the scarf, and they kind of like throw the scarf for you, and they're so practiced at this that the girl who was throwing it and the girl who was taking the photos, like they did this on the first try, and that was pretty much for everybody. And you can definitely take photos with your phone. So like I asked my mom to take photos of me with my phone, but you could purchase this photo inside in the shop. I think it's quite pricey because one printed photo I think is £10, but you get the digital. So like you can buy more hard copies, but why would I, right? I just wanted the digital. So for me, it was worth that. I think it was £10, maybe 15. Gosh, I don't remember, to be honest. But anyways, I have a photo like that from like 2004. And it used to be in a different place in the station, actually. So I just loved having the two compared. I used a bunch of stuff here. Like I used the packaging of something that I bought at the store, and the like some of the candy that I got. I had the book washi from Studio Calico, and I had some like stickers from Etsy. I also have the social paper plan. I think it's Mischief Managed stamp, if I remember correctly. She has one Harry Potter stamp. And then there's another one from Studio Calico. I actually was going to stamp Mischief Managed, but I think while I was doing the spread, I was watching something, got distracted, and I glued this on and already stamped it. So I was like, whatever, I'll just keep Wingardium Leviosa instead. And I used some of my alpha stickers to put platform 9 3/4. And yeah, I was very happy. Like this was unplanned completely, but it was so worth it. I was very happy that I took this picture. And here I have some trip highlights. I just love London, so of course I had to kind of journal about that. And I kind of played on this round shape on the printed page, and I took like I did two photos at I think 3 inches in Photoshop. So I made circles in Photoshop and I clipped my pictures in it, and just to kind of have some a little bit extra on this page. And then to close out, I did 2 more photos. This is when I was leaving London, flying to Vancouver. Wrote about how I'm always a little sad leaving, but I know that I will be back because I keep coming back to the city because it's my favorite. And again, I have some boarding passes from the journey back at the second pocket on the back side of this traveler's notebook. And that is it, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this little flip through. If you have any questions at all, please let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. I will be back soon with even more videos. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.